Hi Tom, the research shows us that privacy is a concern for consumers, but increasingly it is also essential for companies, obviously, in terms of how they use customer data. And your digital pledge, you obviously talk a lot about the need for greater transparency in the public and private sector. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on how business and governments can't ignore this issue any longer.
Okay, so look, society is currently dealing with the really thorny areas of notions of privacy in the internet age, and my personal view is we will have to get to a point where the culturally accepted norm is that people own their own data. They and you have the idea of volunteered personal information rather than obligations there, and for the commercial sector that means the customer has to know the deal on day one, on page one. We want this information to build you better services, get better, and actually prove that. In the public sector, where we've got a whole array of government departments doing all sorts of different data sharing, I think that actually it's a much harder offer. But when we're designing public services in the future, I think we've got to build in volunteered personal information, and that's where people are going. As people live their digital lives out and grow, and I think taboo will reduce. People will accept that there's more of themselves in the public domain, but we've got a generation to work that through. It's really important that business leaders and government understand that.
Great, thank you. The study also shows that kind of internet companies aren't recognised by the public as entertainment companies, which was surprising to us. And just in terms of the kind of digital economy in the UK, how can we greater encourage the really innovative gaming companies that are coming through in the UK to really kind of stimulate that growth?
Yeah. Look, we're in a cutthroat global market where partnerships with government are absolutely key. So the greatest coders and developers are now being literally poached to Canada in the games industry. So one of the things we can do is the classic partnership model. We essentially help mitigate against risk by sort of R&D tax credits and that kind of thing. It's the most degrading thing for brilliant British innovators to have to fly economy to Silicon Valley to chase around venture capitalists. I think we could work with the British finance sector, we're still the best in the world at that kind of stuff, to try and work out how do we get long-term investment in some of these startups, how do we build the risk model, and there's a classic role for government gently at the heart of that, and in partnership with industry and some of the trade groups. So it's a massive deal, and the other part of that is how do we let small business startups with great ideas, how do we help them to scale without sort of baffling them with bureaucracy, and that's a big challenge for the public sector as well.
Great, thanks. And just finally then, I suppose the question is about the relationship between TV and the internet. Obviously in our research we've seen a big surge in the internet, particularly in the US, but TV is still the dominant kind of source of entertainment. Now obviously we've just come off the back of the digital election and the social media election, but the TV debates really did kind of win, if you like. So I just wanted to see kind of how you see the difference between television and the social media tools in the politicians' toolkit.
Do you know there was a sort of virtual industry before the election about in London about how Obama won in the States and why social media was the sort of gave the edge. Of course in this country we had our first ever TV election, so it was always going to be the TV election in my view. But people also ignore what social media did. Candidates were removed from standing as a result of social media disasters. I suspect that members of the government have not got jobs they were going to get as a result of the conversations that took place in the online space in the election. So I don't think we should underestimate the role that social media played in this election as well. It helped amplify mistakes. It helped create the agenda rather than let the political parties create the agenda. And if anyone thinks that effect is not going to grow over the next 5 years, they're making a very big political error of judgment. So, but the interaction between TV and social media is also what we've got to get right. And the biggest thing the TV debates did was start the election earlier for many millions of voters. And they were conversing online about the things the leaders talked about, and that's really important to understand that as well. So, I'm very enthusiastic about how political parties are going to capture social media in the next 5 years, but the basic lesson is they've got to start listening rather than broadcasting in that space.